Okay, next, humanistic theories. 人本理论 It was originally developed by Carl Rogers, and the historical background of this development of humanistic theories is during early parts of the last century, the year of 19-somethings. In psychology, it was a time that psychoanalysis was developing. At the same time, there was another theory, behaviorism. If you still remember behaviorism, classical conditioning, operant conditioning, these are behaviorists they are interested in. For behaviorists, they assume that human behavior is shaped by the environment. If I give you a certain kind of environment, then you will become a certain kind of person. So basically, we are not free. We are the product of our environment. This is what behaviorists will claim. And for psychoanalysis, like Freud, he will claim that your childhood experience is important. So if you have a certain type of childhood, then you will become a certain type of person. In a way, according to psychoanalysis, we are not free either. We are the product of our childhood experiences. So in either behaviorism or psychoanalysis, we are not free individuals. We are basically determined by either the environment or the childhood. So that's why there is another group of people, they disagree this kind of view. They still think that we have some kind of free will. We are not products of childhood experiences or the environment. Okay? We have free will, and not only we have free will, we all have the tendency to achieve the goal. The goal is self-actualization. All of us, according to humanistic theories, all of us with enough sufficient conditions, we all want to reach the final goal of self-actualization. And what is self-actualization? Self-actualization means that every one of us, according to them, every one of us, we all have our potentials. Okay? Some people, they are more artistic. Some people, they are better at language. Some people, they have more scientific mind. Some people, they are more, they have music talent. Okay? Every one of us, we all have some kind of potentials. And we all have a tendency to achieve the highest potential that we can achieve. If you have an artistic mind, and you will eventually become an artist, provided with enough conditions. Okay, so this is self-actualization. We all want to realize our inherent potential. Okay. And this is also a very famous pyramid. Probably you have seen this pyramid in other situations. According to humanistic theorists, this is one of the very famous one, Maslow. He claimed that we all have different needs. Eventually, we will want to achieve self-actualization. So the tip of the pyramid is self-actualization. But before we reach self-actualization, all of the other needs have to be fulfilled before you reach self-actualization. For example, we all have physiological needs. We all need nutrition. We all need food. We all need water. If you have to struggle with hunger, if you have to struggle with thirst, of course, there's no way to self-actualize. So at least you have to be fed. You have to have enough food and water. This is the most basic need. Once you have been fed, you have enough food and enough water, the next thing you want to be fulfilled is safety. You don't want to live in a place where you have to worry about being bombed. Okay? You want to be safe. So this is the next need. After you have been safe, the next need you have is love. Probably you have enough food. Probably you don't have to worry about being bumped. But you are not loved. You don't belong to any group and no one cares about you. Then, of course, you wouldn't think anything about self-actualization. So this is the next thing that you need. You want to be cared, you want to be loved, and you want to belong to some kind of group or some kind of society. And next, esteem. You can imagine that if someone is a person, he doesn't have to worry about food, and he's safe, and he is cared, he's loved, but no one really respects him. Probably he would never think about self-actualization either. So the next thing, the next need that you need to be fulfilled is esteem. You want to be respected. After you have been respected, then you will spontaneously go into the next stage where you want to self-actualize your potentials. Okay? And we all, according to humanistic theories, this is every one of us needs. Okay? So, if you are a teacher, for example, and if you are a humanistic teacher, okay, probably for you, because you believe that every one of us will eventually strive to self-actualize ourselves. So what kind of method we use to teach, probably it doesn't really matter. What we need for example, if you are a school teacher, and what you want to do for the school children is you have to fulfill those needs. Because you believe that after those needs have been fulfilled, those school children, they will eventually strive to self-actualize themselves. Okay? So those children, if you are a school teacher and if you are holding a humanistic view, of course what you do is you have to make sure that those children, they don't have to worry about hunger. They are well fed. And then those children are safe. And then they have to know that they are loved and they are cared. And then you have to respect them. Okay? After you have made sure that those children are respected, then those children, they will eventually self-actualize themselves. So that's why for humanistic theories, a very important thing they have to do is they have to provide their patients or their students unconditional positive regard, which means that no matter what happens, those children or those patients, they must feel that they will always be loved. So of course you can imagine that physical punishment is a debate in education. That physical punishment for humanistic theorists, they are against physical punishment, because when you are issuing a physical punishment, you are hurting the children's self-esteem. And if you hurt their self-esteem, of course there's no way that they will reach the final stage of self-actualization. Okay? Because for them, for humanistic theorists, the final self-actualization will not be reached unless all of the 4 other basic needs are fulfilled. So you have to provide your children or your patients these needs. Okay? So this is humanistic theory. And this is the evaluation. Some people, they might think that the concepts are a little bit fuzzy. They are not very clear. And if you want to do a research project, for example, if you want to test whether this pyramid exists, it's actually very hard to design either a correlational study or experimental study. Okay? It's not that testable. And also, for humanistic theorists, they all believe that every one of us, okay, regardless of what kind of environment we are at, we all follow this pyramid. So that's why people, they might criticize this kind of theory, that they neglect the important environmental factors. Okay. Okay, next, social learning and cognitive theories. Here, actually, these social learning and cognitive theories, it includes 2 kinds of theories. One is learning and the other is cognitive. When you are talking about learning, basically when we are talking about learning, it means the relationship between the stimulus and the environment, like classical conditioning or operant conditioning, things like those. Cognitive theory, it means that before you do an action, actually there is a cognitive system in your mind. And this cognitive system, it will evaluate potential consequences and make a decision. Okay. And we are going to talk about three of them. The first one, Rotter's expectancy theory. Second one, Michel's. The third one, Bandura's. Let's start from the first one, Rotter's expectancy theory. For Rotter's expectancy theory, or for any learning or cognitive theories, basically they don't believe that there is something called subconsciousness. It's not like Freudian psychoanalysis. For Freudian psychoanalysis, subconsciousness or unconsciousness is very important. But for these kind of theories, learning or cognitive theories, everything is in the conscious level. Whatever action, whatever behavior you do, it is because of your conscious evaluation. Okay? It is out of your conscious decision. And for this Rotter's expectancy theory, expectancy is important. And what is expectancy? The extent to which people believe that their behaviors in particular situation will bring about rewards. We are all, every one of us, we are all calculators. And the reason why we do a particular behavior is because of the product of our calculation. For example, the reason why you came to this class today, it is out of your calculation. You made some calculation before you came into the class. The calculation result is you will get higher reward if you come to this class than you not come to this class. According to this calculation result, eventually you decided to come to the class. It is out of calculation. Okay. This morning, when you try to decide whether you should go to 7-Eleven or Family Mart, you are also doing some kind of calculation. According to the result of the calculation, going to 7-Eleven will lead to higher, better expectancy than going to Family Mart. So that's why you chose to go to 7-Eleven. Okay? Whatever you do, it is the product of your calculation. But this kind of calculation, when we are calculating something, we need the database. Why do we know that going to 7-Eleven will lead to higher expectancy than Family Mart? There must be some database. According to that database, going to 7-Eleven will lead to better results. That database, it is your previous, the history of reinforcement. It is your previous experiences, because according to my previous experiences, 7-Eleven, they have better quality food than Family Mart probably. So according to that previous reinforcement, previous experiences, this morning I decided to go to 7-Eleven. Okay. Previous experiences are important, particularly reinforcement. Not only this previous reinforcement is important, but also how you interpret your previous experience is also important. For example, you decided for this class, you decided to come to this class. It is because you calculated. According to your calculation, coming into this class would lead to higher expectancy according to your previous results. Probably according to your previous experiences when you were at high school, those reinforcement, those experiences taught you that going to the class will give you higher grades at the end of the semester. So according to your experiences, you decided to come to this class today. But if your previous experiences is something like, in your past, no matter what you did before, no matter how hard you study, you never, another way to put it is, according to your previous result, whatever you did was irrelevant to the result. Sometimes you studied hard, but you still got very bad grades. Sometimes you didn't study at all, but you got good grades. Okay. So those kind of experiences will probably tell you that I'm not the person who can control the result. In that case, your locus of control is external. Locus of control is when something happens, how you interpret why that thing happens. You got good grades or bad grades before. Sometimes if your locus of control is external, and you probably think that I couldn't control the final grades of my course or of whatever course I'm enrolled, because it's not controlled by myself, it's controlled by many other factors. In that case, if you believe that you can't control your final grades, probably your behavior is probably I'm not studying at all. Okay? Because according to my previous results, previous experiences, no matter how hard I study, it doesn't really matter. So of course then I don't have to study. But if you believe that the effort you put could actually lead to good results, then you are more inclined to study hard. Okay? So why you do a particular behavior, why you chose to come to class today, there must be some reason. According to your previous experiences, coming to the class will lead to positive expectancy. So that's why you chose to come. Also, you believe that whatever you do can change, can affect your behavior. So you voluntarily came to the class. But if you believe that whatever you do doesn't really matter, probably you wouldn't have come to this class. So how you interpret your previous experiences also affect how your expectancy is. Okay? So speaking of locus of control, some people they tend to be more internally, they tend to be more internal, and some people they tend to be more external. Internal means that you believe that you can change the facts. External means that no matter what you do, actually you can't control anything. Okay? And there is a correlation between how internal you are and your mental health. Basically, if you are more kind of internal person, your mental health will be better than external people. Okay? And there is a study, they examined a relationship between the locus of control when they were 10, and they found that it can predict how healthy they are, psychologically, how healthy they are when they are 30. Okay? Which is not too surprising, because if you believe that you can't control anything, probably you believe that whatever you do is not helpful. It's not helpful at all. Whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. If you believe so, and it's more likely that you'll get upset. But if you believe that whatever you do can change the fact, then you believe that you are more powerful. So probably you will be happier. Okay, so next, Michel's cognitive affective personality theory. If you look at this word cognitive affective, there's a word cognition here, and affective. Affective, it means emotion. So according to this theory, whatever we do, of course, it's coming from our calculation. Okay? Why did you choose to come to this class? It is because of your calculation, but it is also because of your emotion. So in this theory, they have listed 5 major factors that affect your behavior: encodings, expectancy and beliefs, and goals and values, and competency, and self-regulatory plans. Among the 5, these 4, encodings, expectancies and belief, goals and values, and competency, these are more kind of cognitive stuff. And affects, which is emotion. Okay? Your emotion can also somehow mediate your behavior. But if you look at the 5 variables, the final one, competence and self-regulatory plans, they come together. The reason why, according to their study, the two things, competence and self-regulatory plans, they come together it is because the two things, their effect, they always exert their effects jointly. This is one of the recent study they did. They recruit 59 boys, and these 59 boys, they measure their competency. Competency in a way it means that how intelligent they are. So they measure their verbal intelligence. They separate this group of boys into high intelligent group and low intelligent group. And then they also measure their self-regulatory plans. Self-regulatory plans means how likely or how well they can control themselves. So according to their measurement, these people can be separated into high self-regulatory plans group and the low self-regulatory plan group. High means it's more likely for them to control themselves. They are better at controlling themselves. Low means they are worse at controlling themselves. And then they test their aggressiveness, and they found that basically if you only look at their intelligence, you find no effect of intelligence and aggressiveness. Okay? Because if you compare this group, the average value here is 0. And for the high intelligent group, the average value here is also 0. But if you look at the effect of control for low intelligent group, no matter how well they can control themselves, it doesn't affect their aggressiveness. But for the high intelligent group boys, if they are better at control themselves, then their aggressiveness level is low, significantly lower. But if they are worse at controlling themselves, their aggressiveness is higher. Okay. Here, this study, they just want to emphasize that if you want to look at why people they do a certain behavior, for competency and self-regulatory plans, they always come together. Because if you only look at one of them, you can't see the final result. These two factors, they always come together. Okay? And this is Michel's cognitive affective personality theory. Okay, the final one, Bandura's cognitive social learning theory. Bandura actually is the second time we talked about his name this semester. The first time we talked about Alan Bandura was a few weeks ago when we talked about observational learning. Like, if you still remember the video is a group of researchers. They recruited a group of children, and those children they were separated into two groups. One of the group, they watched the research assistant beating the Bobo doll. There's a doll, that doll is called Bobo, and the research assistant is beating the Bobo doll violently. And those children, they watched this beating behavior. Eventually, they became more aggressive as well. Okay. So for Alan Bandura, his Bobo doll experiments somehow tells us that if you want to do whatever things you do in front of the child, you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful because the child tends to imitate whatever you do. Okay? And according to his theories on human behavior, he believes that every one of us, we are products of the three different forces. One is person. Person is like your trait. You are an extroverted person or you are an introverted person. This is your trait. So this person is your trait, your temperament and your trait. And of course, your trait will affect your behavior. If you are an extroverted person, it's more likely that you are more talkative. Okay? So your trait affects your behavior. And the environment also affects your behavior. Why? Because if you're in an environment that you feel safe, probably it's more likely you are more talkative. If you are in an environment that you don't feel safe, and it's likely that you could be talkative. So environment, of course, it affects your behavior. Okay? But interestingly, not only can person or environment affect your behavior can also affect your trait and affects environment. How come? How does your behavior affect the environment? Imagine if you are a sporty person, so you do a lot of sports. So at the behavior level, you do a lot of sports. When you are doing a lot of sports, it's more likely that your friends are also sporty people. Because when you're playing, for example, if you like to play basketball and you play basketball a lot, it's more likely for you to make other friends who are also playing basketball. Your friends actually are the environment. Okay? Your friends also, anything coming from the outside is the environment. So of course, your behavior will affect the environment. If you are a sporty person, of course, it's more likely your friends are also sporty, so your behavior affects the environment. And if you are a sporty person, it's more likely that you would choose a sporty student club or a more kind of sporty university. So that is also how your behavior can potentially affect your environment. Okay. And because you have made many sporty friends, so you guys do a lot of sports together a lot, eventually it actually improves your sporty skills. Your basketball skills actually improved. So environment and behavior can affect your traits. Okay? So this is just an example of how sporty you are can affect what kind of environment can affect the environment or the person. Or another example is if you are an artistic person, okay, your behavior, you do a lot of artistic things, it's more likely that you will meet also other artistic friends. And then those artistic friends, they will also affect your behavior. How do they affect your behavior? Remember Alan Bandura. For him, observation is important. For children, they can get aggressive just by watching other people being aggressive. For adults, of course, it will be the same. If you are always watching other people being artistic, in a way, you will become more artistic as well. Okay. So, people, behavior, and environment, these three factors, any two among the three, they have reciprocal determinism. Okay? If you still remember these arrows, they are all bidirectional. So if you think you are athletic, you are sporty, athletic, of course you wouldn't. If you don't think you are athletic, then you wouldn't choose an athletic environment. The other way is if you think you are athletic, of course it's more likely that you would choose an athletic environment. You will make athletic friends, and by watching your friends being athletic, you will become even more athletic. Okay. And for Alan Bandura, his recent theories, he emphasizes on self-efficacy. Self-efficacy means that how much you believe you can perform adequately in a particular situation. How much you think you are sporty, how much you think you are artistic, how much you think you are musical. Because if we go back to this chart, your trait affects your behavior. If you are an artistic person, then you tend to do artistic things. But the thing, actually in Alan Bandura's theory, whether you are really artistic, it doesn't really matter. What matters is whether you believe that you are artistic or not. Because maybe you are not artistic, but you believe that you are artistic. Because you believe you are artistic, so you do artistic thing a lot. Okay? You go to the galleries a lot. And by going to the galleries a lot, you are more likely to make artists friends. And by watching them, actually it makes you to become more artistic. Or sporty. Maybe you are not a very sporty person, but you believe that you are a sporty person. And because you believe that you are a sporty person, you tend to do sports more. And by doing these sports, you make more sporty friends. And by watching those sporty friends, actually that can make you to become more sporty. So initially, whether you are sporty, whether you are artistic, whether you are generous, whether you are musical, whatever you are, it doesn't really matter. What matters is how much do you believe you are a certain kind of person? How much do you believe you are an artistic person? How much you believe you are an science-minded person? How much you believe you are a sporty person? This is important, and this is self-efficacy. Okay. So that is Alan Bandura's theory. Okay, so evaluation. For those three theories we just talked about, learning and cognition theories, they don't talk about unconscious at all. Whatever you do, actually it is out of your conscious calculation, conscious cognition. Okay? There is no such a thing called subconsciousness and unconsciousness. And also, they don't put much emphasis on emotion because they are treating human beings as some kinds of calculating machines. Okay? So they don't talk much about emotions. And they neglect how personal construct and competence are created. Personal construct and competence is something like your traits. Some people, they just tend to be more extroverted. Some people, they just tend to be more generous, and they don't talk much about those natural traits. Okay, the last topic for today's lecture, assessing personality. So, how do we measure people's personality? There are several tests, and among these different kinds of tests, basically we can treat them as two different major kinds. The first one, objective. The second one, projective. What is objective? Objective tests, they are just like our midterm exam. Okay? For our midterm exam, it's just like 50 multiple choice questions, and it's very easy to get a score. Okay? So for this kind of objective traits, it is like that. After you have filled out the questionnaire, you will get the result instantly, and the result will tell you what kind of person you are. One of them is MMPI Minnesota Multifaceted Personality Inventory. At the beginning, okay, today we're talking about personality, and next week we're talking about psychological disorder. And actually the two things are very relevant. The reason why they are relevant is when we are talking about personality, we are talking about individual differences. But you can imagine that when the individual differences is getting bigger and bigger, up to a point, if a person, he or she is too different from the rest of the people, then we consider them as psychological disorder. So in a way, personality and psychological disorder, they are kind of relevant. They are all concerned about individual differences. So for MMPI, the reason why it was developed originally, the purpose was just to screen out those clinical population. So that's why the original version, it only had clinical scales. Okay. Also, another feature is there's no theoretical basis. They are just a group of people, and they wrote a lot of questions, and eventually they found that those questions can separate people into clinical group and non-clinical group. So that's why this kind of test they were developed. Originally there was no theoretical basis, but it was just practical, so it exists. And then for any kind of psychological test, they need revision. From the 1980s, the MMPI, the second version, for the version that is being used today, there is, in addition to clinical skills, there are also some other non-clinical skills or content skills. or new PI and new pi, and it is based on the 5-factor model that we talked about in the first part of today's lecture. It's used for non-clinical population. So that was objective test. For objective test, you basically just take the test and you'll get a result, and then after you get, then this result will tell you what kind of person you are. And for projective tests, it doesn't have a very clear way to score, like this test, Rorschach test. So this is just one example of Rorschach test. Okay? Basically what you see is a picture like this, and what you do is, please tell a story. Please tell whatever you think about this pattern, and you can talk anything that you think of. And you can imagine, for this kind of test, there is no objective way to score. If there is no objective way to score, how do you interpret the result? To use this kind of test, you need to be trained. Okay? And probably you should go to a workshop, and after the workshop, and you will get a license. You need a license, or you need some kind of certification to apply this kind of test, because to interpret the results is not something that everyone can do. Okay? But this test is quite commonly used in clinical psychology. Or this one, thematic perception test. It's also a picture, and then you just tell a story. You can tell any story you can possibly think of. And also, just like the Rorschach test, to interpret the result, you need to be trained. It's not like everyone can interpret the result. Okay? So basically, Rorschach test and TAT test, these are all very commonly used in clinical psychology. Okay, so this is a summary of today's lecture. We talked about a lot of different things, okay? And we are going to talk about them next week as well, because next week we are going to talk about clinical psychology. Clinical psychology and personality, they are kind of similar because they are all dealing with individual differences. So these kind of theories, we are going to meet them again next week. Okay, psychodynamic, Freudian psychoanalysis, or learning theory, okay, or like these trait theories. Basically, in psychology nowadays, probably you can, for personality, it's easier for you to find relevant evidence about trait theories because relatively it has more evidence-based data. Okay, because basically the establishment of this theory is from statistical analysis. Psychodynamic, it includes many different kinds of theories, but we only talked about psychoanalysis. Okay? They are relatively, particularly in psychology, most of the psychology, particularly for those science-trained background psychologists, their attitudes towards psychoanalysis is more biased to be negative. But for psychodynamic theory or psychoanalysis, it is still used in clinical psychology. Some people, they still use it. Or learning or cognitive, and we talked about 3 of them. And then at the end of today's lecture, we talked about objective and projective assessments.